I call to order the January 8th, 2019 regular Green City Council meeting at 7:58 PM. Please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Babbitt.
Here.
Mr. Dyer.
Here.
Mr. Humphrey.
Here.
Mr. Shaughnessy.
Here.
Mr. Spate.
Here.
Mr. Yergin.
Here.
Mr. Young.
The first item of business on our agenda for the regular meeting is council study session. We have before us the approval of the December 11th, 2018 regular meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the public report. We have had 3 individuals sign in to speak this evening. The first is Caitlin Manwaring. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Caitlin Manwaring, 5833 Spikerman Drive, Clinton, Ohio, 44216. I was advised previously, before this meeting started, that there would not be much discussion regarding the master connectivity plan that's being drafted and that was presented earlier in committee meeting. However, I was not informed of this until about 6 o'clock this evening after committee had already started. So I do still wish to speak on the topic. I understand there will be meetings that will be held, in a few more meetings that will be held, and we will be present at those with more residents of the Nemesilla Reservoir area. I'd just like to read a few excerpts of a position of the Nemesilla residents on a proposed bike and hike trail that we drafted back in June of this year when we met with Justin at a resident's home. We've also met with Rocco and discussed our concerns there as well. One of our concerns for this type of plan would be the safety, security, and emergency response that's available. And that's for both residents and neighbors. Not only for those living around the reservoir, but for those wishing to enjoy the park as well. In many locations along the potential proposed trail, there is not direct access where a trail would be located. One of these locations would be behind the homes on Spikerman Drive, and the only way to access that trail would be from the parking lot on South Main Street or the parking lot on Jones Drive. It would cause delays in assisting a visitor that needed medical attention, and the trail would have to provide enough space for emergency response teams to access it without issue. Furthermore, in the case of running a trail behind those homes on Spikerman Drive, and now as proposed on Comet Lane, there is absolutely no public access to the water or the proposed trail paths from the road. It causes concern for both residents, and in addition, the area of the parkland behind Spikerman Drive has never been adequately patrolled by the ODNR, Summit Metro Parks, or the Summit County Sheriff. Residents were told that this portion of the parkland is not part of the agreement between the Summit Metro Parks and the ODNR, and therefore patrolling is the responsibility of the ODNR. Over the past few decades, there has been very minimal patrolling of that area by anyone at this point. If the trail were to be created, it would likely run against property lines of residents who have lived there for many years. Not only residents now behind Spikerman Drive, but also those with property that now runs to the water area along Comet Lane, which is part of the proposed route. In addition to our concerns about safety, we are also concerned about the irreparable damage to wildlife habitats and the riparian ecosystem. Nemesilla is a sanctuary to animal and plant species alike, and when the ODNR began the stripping of trees along the dams on the south and west and northwest sides of the reservoir, they decimated the ecosystem currently in place beyond repair. The distress an additional trail would cause to these habitats would be devastating. As current or previous plans had proposed, that included the clear cutting of approximately 7 acres of land. The areas of tree cutting required alone would drive away our eagles, osprey, purple martins, and the endangered Indiana bat. The unique wetland plants would be eradicated in many areas, as land clearing would cause major destruction. The land clearing and creation of a trail would also result in erosion to the shorelines around the reservoir, Anyone who is currently enjoying the parkland can tell you that the shoreline has fallen in complete disrepair over the past many years and nothing has been done to fix it. The trees have been uprooted, the shorelines have been diminishing for quite some time. This is a result of the erosion taking place, and an additional trail would only exacerbate this issue. This is something we plan to address at all the future meetings, and we have discussed with multiple council members over many years, as well as Wayne Weethy 20 years ago, when this original plan was proposed with previous council members. So I just wanted to get that out there, let you guys all know that's where we stand on this, and we will continue to oppose the trail. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to sign in is Pat Karleski.
Pat Karleski, 3878 Greenfield Road, Uniontown, Ohio. Some of you know, and some of you don't know, that I am a retired federal employee. I am very concerned about the furloughed federal employees who live within our city and, in fact, throughout our nation. They have the employees who are currently working have worked for 3 weeks with no pay, and obviously furloughed employees have no pay. Now, let's see, I'd like to show you. Does it go here on the X, Molly?
Yes.
Oops, I hope I can get in close enough. People always say, oh, well, they're just crying because they're not getting paid. Will they get paid? No. They will not get paid for their furloughed work or for the furlough period unless Congress approves it. Congress may approve it, Congress may not approve it, but I predict that if Congress approves back pay, the administration will veto it, which the administration can. Okay, someone might say, if you're a furloughed federal employee and you're not getting paid, why don't you just go out and get a part-time job? Well, wonderful. You can't go out and get a part-time job. You have to confer with upper supervisory levels and your ethics officer before you are allowed to take a part-time job. And guess what? Those people are all on furlough too. So there goes part-time employment. I would also like to direct your attention to the fact that, whoops, I better move this up here. If you are a single parent receiving child support from a furloughed government employee, if and when any back pay is paid, whatever amount it may be, there is a precedence order when the pay is not sufficient to meet all deductions. You will notice that child support and other court-ordered things are not in the top 5. And in fact, they don't even show up until down here, number 10. Oops. So there might be some single parents who are not going to get their child support. Okay, I'm going as fast as I can. Our employees, are they entitled to unemployment while they are on furlough? It depends on the rules of the state. But there is a kicker here. The state applies to the federal government for reimbursement of unemployment benefits paid. The federal government, specifically your agency, or as an executive order, can refuse that reimbursement, then the state comes back and collects it from the employee. So you're not getting unemployment, you're getting a loan that you have to pay back. And then the thing that really upsets me, this is what the employees are supposed to do to help themselves. Here we go. sample letters, okay? It says you call your debtors and you do this and do that. And here's a sample letter for your creditor, and here's a sample letter to your mortgage company. Financial folks, how seriously are you gonna take these letters when people can't pay their mortgages? I mean, come on, do you think Wells Fargo really cares? And then finally, what I heard throughout my career, and I am hearing it today, that government employees slop at the trough of the taxpayer. Federal government employees slop at the trough of the taxpayer. Well, here we go, folks. This is the pay schedule, and I invite any of you to review this. Now, entry-level positions are usually at the GS5 or even below, depending on the complexity and the requirements for the job. So we could very well have someone, a family person, at pay steps 1, 2, and 3, okay? And these steps are based on longevity and performance, so, but just look at the base pay here. $18,785 a year. These are people who are administrative personnel, clerks, storage and warehousing people, people in the motor pool.
Ms. Karleski, we'll need you to wrap it up if you
Yes.
want to sum up.
That's it.
Okay.
What I would like to sum up is, your neighbor may very well be a federal employee. I have had many people who work for me call me up because they don't know who else to call. Just be sensitive to the fact that things are not always the way that you hear on television news shows. And please, if you know someone who works for the federal government and they're on furlough, be kind, just sort of keep an eye open and see if they appear to be struggling. I would love to see anybody raise a family on $18,785. Thank you.
Thank you. And our third and final person who signed in tonight is Robert Talent. Sorry, did I say it wrong?
Yes.
Can you tell me how to say it?
Hi, Robert Talenda, 2740 Compass Point Drive. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. We're in the process, or the developer who has developed the Lakes of Green subdivision is in the process of completing phase 2, or phase 2 is completed, and there may be some maintenance issues, and phase 3 is still to be completed, and they're under a performance bond. We wanted to make sure that everything was done that was supposed to get done before those bonds were released. We've been working with the city planning department in Wayne, and I'm just saying, he's been doing an excellent job in terms of working with us, trying to get all of this, and I know he's got to work with the developer, Cambridge Services, and with the residents of Lakes of Green, and he's been doing a good job getting information to us so that we can look and see what the items are that need to be completed, all right, and to make sure, since we're there, look at those items in a more close manner, because we're there every day to make sure that they're completed. So I just wanted to say he's been doing a very good job of that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Talenda. Okay, our next item of business is the reading of correspondence. Would the clerk please read the correspondence?
Email from Christopher Marquardt regarding internship. Email from Bill Deem regarding input to the 2019 capital budget process. Planning and Zoning Commission's December 19th agenda. Civil Service Commission's November 4th, 2018 minutes. Planning Department's financial summaries for November and December. And an email from Tony Zieler regarding council meetings on YouTube. That's it.
Thank you. The next item is new legislation. We have two items on first reading.
First reading resolution 2019-R01, a resolution establishing that the position of law director shall be a part-time position and that the law director shall commit no less than 20 hours per week to his or her duties set forth in Article 6.4 of the City of Green Charter and setting the salary of the law director beginning January 1st, 2020, and future terms following and declaring an emergency.
Okay, this legislation has been referred to the Charter Amendment Implementation Committee. Originally, first reading passage had been requested, but the committee will meet a week from today at 5 PM to consider this legislation at that time.
Next is 2019-R02, a resolution awarding a contract to Sander Contracting, Inc. for the Aris Park Dog Park, yes, making an appropriation and declaring an emergency.
This has been referred to the Finance Committee, and second reading passage has been requested, so that will take place at our next meeting. Our next item is the report of council committees. Even though we went out of order during our committee session, we will be back in order now, and the first committee to report is the Finance Committee, chaired by Mr. Humphrey.
Thank you, Madam President. We did have a Finance Committee meeting this evening. Myself, Mr. Jurgen, and Mrs. Babbitt were present. We did discuss several items of legislative business. We had a fourth or fifth reading of 2018 R87. This is a resolution approving and adopting the 2019 annual capital appropriations for the City of Green, making transfers and declaring an emergency. The major and this is as amended. The major thing that was amended on this piece of legislation was the fire department, for fire department number 3 was taken out. That doesn't mean that we're not going to build another fire department, but there had been some requests by citizens within the community that they wanted time to be able to discuss the funding source used for that. It's been proposed that we use the Nexus Settlement Fund in order to fund this as it directly pertains to the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens in Green. But people wanted an opportunity to be able to weigh in on that. And so that we could move forward on the capital budget without cutting short the time that people had in order to be able to address this issue, we're going to hold this in abeyance on the fire department issue, the fire station issue, for the next month or so that folks will have, by the time it's over, probably 6 different meetings that they'll be able to come and address council on this. You can also contact your council person through their email, or give them a call, or show up at one of our future meetings to be able to make your thoughts known on this. The amended total is $11,988,000. There were a couple other changes in there, an increase in the amount dedicated to roads, which will bring us up to about $2.5 million that we'll be spending on roads. Hopefully, when the books are closed on 2018, we'll have another $500,000 to be able to get us up to $300,000 that we'll be spending on roads in 2019. As we have had more than 3 readings on this, I would move to adopt 2018 R87 as amended.
Second. Second. Oh, sorry.
We have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 218 R87 as amended.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, sorry. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Humphrey.
Yes.
Mr. Dyer.
Yes.
Mr. Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Mr. Spate.
Yes.
Mr. Jurgen.
Yes.
Mrs. Babbitt.
Yes.
Resolution 2018 R87 adopted 6-0.
We had a second reading of 2018 R97. This is a resolution authorizing the City of Green to enter into a contract with USIC Locating Services, LLC, for professional utility locating services for a one-year term with the option to renew annually commencing February 13, 2019, making an appropriation and declaring an emergency. The appropriation is $30,000 to the contracted service account from the unappropriated balance of the general fund. Mr. Pickett gave us a report on this and why it's necessary. And this is second reading. There's no reason for second reading passage, and so the committee will take time. The final piece of legislation we spoke about in committee this evening, the administration gave us a heads up that at our next regular meeting, they'll be requesting second reading passage on 2019 R02. So even though it was on first reading this evening, we did have an opportunity to discuss it in committee. This is a resolution awarding a contract to Sander Contracting Incorporated for the Aris Park Dog Park, making an appropriation and declaring an emergency. The lowest and best bid was submitted by Sander Contracting. The base bid was $98,664. The clearing and grubbing, $2,000, and the alternate bid for the water supply, $14,075. A majority of this appropriation will go for fencing at the dog park. This is something that our citizens have requested for quite some time, and if we pass it, at our next meeting, the contractor will be able to get in there around April and to be able to pass this on, be able to have this available by, I believe, Arbor Day, which is our goal, to have this completed by Arbor Day, this dog park. And so the committee will request time on that. We had no items of old or new business, and then the committee adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. The next committee to report this evening is Environment and Parks, chaired by Mr. Spate.
Thank you, Mrs. Babbitt. All members were present. However, we did not have any legislative business to discuss. I guess for new business, I did mention that the Parks and Rec Board meeting will be held here at the Central Administration Building tomorrow night at 6 p.m. They will be discussing the master trail plan for the city. So if you're able to attend, please all come. And that was it.
Thank you, Mr. Spate. The next committee to report this evening is the Public Safety Committee. I chair Public Safety. Mr. Humphrey, Mr. Dyer, and I were all present. The committee met. We did not have any legislative items, but we did receive the Nexus Safety Report from Mr. Yergin, and the committee was adjourned at 6:20. The next committee to report this evening is Planning, Community, and Economic Development, chaired by Mr. Yergin.
Thank you, Madam President. Myself and Mr. Spate were present. Mr. Young was absent. We did not have any items of legislation before us, and therefore the committee did not meet.
Thank you, Mr. Yergin. The next committee to report tonight is the Rules and Personnel Committee, chaired by Mr. Young, but chaired by Mr. Dyer this evening.
Thank you, Madam President. Myself and Mr. Humphrey were both present. We decided to put off discussion of the Charter Review Commission appointments made by the mayor until the regular meeting. So this is the regular meeting. So I give the floor to the mayor to discuss the proposed members to the Charter Review Commission this year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dyer. I don't know if you've been part of the charter review process in the past. I have, and the role of the Charter Review Commission is to discuss every aspect of our charter, take input from the public, see what the public's concerns are, and then draft potential changes to the charter that would meet the needs of maybe a more modern times or differences, things that people bring to the discussion. And so reflecting on the role that they have and wanting kind of some continuity with past commissions and some new people moving forward, I propose the following 5 candidates. The first person that I would like to mention is Ted Mallow. Ted was on the original Green Charter Commission, and he was part of the last charter review in 2012. He served as an attorney for the University of Akron for over 55 years, and he's certainly a quality member of our community, a lot of history in our charter process, and I think he'll be a great asset to that committee. Second person I'd like to highlight is Susan Allen. She's a local architect, and and she served on the Charter Review Commission the last two times in 2005, 2012. In 2012, she was the chair of the Charter Review Commission. I think she handled that extremely well, and so I'm recommending that she come back again this time and help in the process. Now, the next three are all new, and I think, once again, I think there's a need to have some continuity, but there's also some new faces. And so the next three all fit that. And the first, I'd like to introduce Vivian Duffrin. She's an attorney. She would be one of three attorneys that I'm pointing to this commission. Right now, she's the Assistant Law Director in the City of Canton. She's had that position in the last year, so I think she's very qualified, certainly knowledgeable of the issues. The next person is C.J. Mager. He's also a local attorney, works with Brennan, Manna, and Diamond. Again, I think will be a good voice on that commission, and I certainly know that some council people are very, very fond of him as well. And the last person is Sherry Newbert. She's the CIO of Chief Information Officer for Goodyear Global. She spent a year and a half as a regional IT manager in Luxembourg. She's held the position of CIO at Goodyear for the last 16 years, a very impressive person. And when I interviewed her, she commented that she had read the charter, and so I asked her a couple of questions about the charter, which she answered very admirably, but then she also told me she read the Ohio Constitution. So I think she was very motivated and ready to serve, because I haven't yet read the Ohio Constitution. So that's a brief description. I've made the selection over the last month, interviewed. I think one of the issues that's on the table earlier today was the elected law director. And from talking to the candidates, I don't think there's anybody who really wants to serve for the purpose of changing or altering the course of the city. So whether you think they're for or against the elected law director, they're all committed to moving for the community with the decision of the community. And so that, to me, that was an important distinction that I wanted those people to have. There's certainly, none of them, to my knowledge, have any agenda, nor do I have an agenda for the charter review. To me, this is a public process for them to take input from the public to look at issues that have been discussed over the last 7 years and perhaps resolve some issues that are known to exist. And so I respectfully ask for council to approve that group, who will begin their work later in this month. As noted earlier, they have to wrap up in June because council then has to approve those changes that they may recommend, and it has to go on the ballot in the fall.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any comments on the proposed appointments to the Charter Review Commission?
Yes,
Mr. Shaughnessy.
thank you, Mr. Dyer. The group of people and professionals that the mayor has selected have great resumes. I had an initial concern. 3 of these members came before council and specifically vocally opposed issue 14. So my concern is not necessarily what they would do on the Charter Commission. As the mayor has just pointed out, they all intend to move forward with the decision of the city. I'm happy about that, great. But my concern more lies with just the appearance of bias. 2 of these members were committee members of the Political Action Committee that was established to oppose issue 14. Chris Meager's one of them, and again, as the mayor said, many members of council are fond of him, and I'm fond of him as well. I like Chris Meager a lot. I don't think he would do anything to change the outcome of the vote. I think he would support the citizens' decision. But again, I can't vote. I can't approve these just from the appearance. I think we need charter member commission members to be both neutral and appear neutral. It's the appearance that I have an issue with. Thank you.
Anyone else care to,
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Yergin?
Thank you. I would only note that I was also a vocal opponent of issue 14, but tonight I was Mr. Shaughnessy's best friend on this issue. And so I don't think you can judge a book by its cover necessarily. That's all.
Anyone else care to comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, first of all, I think these folks all have very impressive resumes. Hopefully, they are individuals who've been paying attention to the issues in our city. Hopefully, they all voted in the last election. I think if you don't want to have somebody that's biased, you would have to find somebody who didn't vote in the last election, who never formed an opinion on an issue that was central to what was going on in our city. In which case, I would say you don't want that person on your charter commission, because number one, they're not paying attention, number two, they didn't vote. So I think that what they're going to do in public. This is a process that will play out in public. This is something that happens periodically in our city. And then city council will approve the measures that are sent to us, and then the voters will have a chance to vote on it. So let's say, for example, they send something to the electorate that's wildly unpopular, voters can say no. So the city council is a roadblock, and the people of the city of Greene are a roadblock ultimately. And so regardless of who's on this commission, the citizens have the last word. So I'm comfortable with the professionalism and the character of each of them. I think they'll do a fine job.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. Anyone else care to?
Mr. Dyer, I guess I
Mr.
understand.
Spade.
I understand Mr. Shaughnessy's concerns, and he's right, the optics of it are one thing, but very much in reference to the candidates, they're all very high qualified candidates, respectable people in our community, and I trust that they're going to do what many of them have done for years and keep our community, in the interest of our residents at the forefront of the Charter Review Commission. So I understand the optics, but I do respect the candidates, and I will definitely support the list.
Thank you, Mr. Spade. Anyone else care to have?
Mr. Dyer,
comment?
I'd just like to comment that
Sure.
there was, this is limited to 5. It was a very difficult task. There was many other people who I felt were worthy, and I know that those people will participate either way. So all the charter review meetings, I would expect those who applied will likely be here, even if they weren't selected, because they truly want what's best for our city. And one of them is in the room here tonight. And so it was very difficult to pare it down to 5. I commented to several, I wish I had 7. And quite frankly, if our charter were different, I would be thrilled if council would have a couple. It's quite a responsibility to put together a group of people who will represent their city well. But I truly believe that at the end of the process, that you'll be very proud of the work that they do. And certainly, they're all open meetings. Come participate. State your opinions. Their job is to go through the process, but theirs won't be the only opinions considered. And I expect a very public process from this highly qualified group of individuals.
Anyone else care to discuss this? I'll just say real briefly, I too am concerned about the optics. There were 5,638, I believe, residents of Greene who voted for issue 14. I'm not sure if any of those folks are represented on this Charter Review Commission. I am encouraged that they've committed to fulfilling the wishes of the people on that issue. But I too am concerned about the optics, and I do appreciate the mayor attempting to reach out to some of the folks who did support it But I do wish it were more balanced. I'm not saying that we want people who didn't vote in the last election, but, this was a very contentious issue. This was a difficult issue for many folks in the city, caused a lot of strife. And, if you're gonna have people who publicly opposed it on the commission, I wish there were at least people who publicly supported it. But in either case, I am okay with the appointments because I'm taking these folks at their word that they're going to follow through on these wishes. And so with that, I move to approve the Charter Review Commission appointees to the mayor's appointments to the Charter Review Commission.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the mayor's appointees to the Charter Review Commission. Is there any discussion? Is this a voice vote or?
Right, roll call.
Roll call vote. So will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Yes.
Mr. Shaughnessy,
No.
Mr. Spate,
Yes.
Mr. Yergin,
Yes.
Mrs. Babbitt.
Yes.
Was approved 5-1.
Okay.
Just a point of order, Madam Clerk. Did that have to be, was that allowed? I don't know if appointments are different, 3/4, or is it simple majority? I just want to make sure.
I don't recall ever reading that. I think it's just a majority.
Just a majority? Okay.
think so.
All right, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
Fine.
Bob not being here is complicating.
It's a majority.
If it's an issue, I'll change my vote. I mean,
Okay.
I want them working.
That's fine.
Okay.
We can reconsider if it's a problem. No big deal.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else in your committee?
Oh, there was nothing else on the committee, I'm sorry. And we adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. The next committee that we'll receive a report from this evening is the Transportation, Connectivity, and Stormwater Committee, chaired by Mr. Shaughnessy.
I'm on the wrong page. Give me a moment here. Okay. Thank you, Madam President. The Transportation, Connectivity, and Stormwater Committee met. Myself and Mr. Yergin were present. We discussed TMP 2366. It's a master trail plan. It was there was a presentation by Environmental Design Group. Mr. Wheathy introduced them. They're going to be also presenting to the Planning Department. Is that tomorrow, Mr. Wheathy?
Tomorrow, they'll be presenting to the Parks and Rec Board.
Parks and Rec, I'm sorry. And then there's going to be on it, and correct me here, is it the 17th?
On the 16th, I'll be presenting to the Planning and Zoning Commission. On the 17th, AMATS is having a community involvement committee here at Community Hall, and that will be presented there as well.
Okay, and that will give the public a few more additional opportunities to make comment, and this ultimately will be brought to council for adoption. We had two items of legislation, both on second reading. The first, 2018 R95, it's a resolution authorizing the City of Greene to enter into a contract with EMH&T Incorporated for professional engineering services for a 3-year term commencing December 1st, 2018, and declaring an emergency. Now, this is legislation designed to approve a contract with EMH&T to design a roundabout for Arlington and Greensburg Road. The administration has asked for second reading passage. Does anyone on council have any objections to second reading passage? Hearing none, I move to bypass the 3-reading rule on Resolution 2018 R95.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to bypass the 3-reading rule for 2018 R95. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will bypass the 3-reading rule for this legislation.
I move to adopt Resolution 2018 R95.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt 2018 R95. The clerk, please call the roll.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, is there any discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Mr. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Yes.
Mr. Spate,
Yes.
Mr. Yergin,
Yes.
Mrs. Babbitt.
Yes.
Resolution 2018 R85 adopted 6-0. 95. Thanks.
Okay, our second piece of legislation discussed tonight was the second reading of 2018 R96, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the County of Summit for concrete road repairs, including miscellaneous concrete work located in the city of Greene and declaring an emergency. Now, this is legislation permitting us to, pretty much as it says, to take advantage of the economy of scale, as Mr. Humphrey said in committee meetings, whereby we use the county's contractors and their bid for concrete work, saves the city money, but still allows us to manage the projects, make sure that the quality is up to snuff. This is a second reading passage, or no, this is not a second reading passage, but just second reading. We will take this to the third reading. Having no new or old business, we adjourned at 5:48.
Thank you, Mr. Shaughnessy. The next committee to report this evening is Intergovernmental and Utilities, chaired by Mr. Dyer.
Thank you, Madam President. Myself, Mr. Shaughnessy, and Mr. Spate were present. We didn't have anything to talk about, though, so we didn't meet.
Thank you. The final committee to report this evening is the Charter Amendment Implementation Committee, chaired by Mr. Yergin.
Thank you, Madam President. We did meet tonight. Myself, Ms. Babbitt, and Mr. Shaughnessy were present. We had a lengthy and healthy discussion about Resolution 2019 R01, which was earlier read into the record by Molly. There was a good discussion about balancing the need to have an immediate decision to give prospective candidates notice of what the position is going to be about versus giving the community time to weigh in on the issue and having legal counsel. We have, are engaged in a review by independent legal counsel, giving that legal counsel time to give us some feedback. And basically, as a compromise measure, we've decided to have a special meeting a week from tonight at 5 p.m. To give council time to give us feedback and probably make a decision at that time. There was no other business before the committee, and the committee adjourned.
Mr. Yergin,
sorry.
quick question.
I'm sorry.
Do you plan on having the amendment to that reflecting the 55,000?
I do.
Okay,
Thank you.
And Mr. Yergin,
Good
can we,
point.
yes,
sir,
some
Mr.
people, I know it's amazing, but some people just don't watch committee meetings. So could we discuss what's in the language for the
Sure.
law director position, so people who watch this would know what we're looking at next week?
That's fine. There was an extensive conversation, so for folks that are watching this at home, I encourage you to go back and look at the committee meeting. Probably there was no stone left unturned based on what we need to discuss, but the quick summary is that the law director position, it seems that our committee and council probably agrees it needs to be a part-time position. We had discussion about the pay, and I anticipate that there's going to be agreement on a salary around $55,000 with benefits and a salary increase that is similar to that of the mayor, which is 3% a year. Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Any other comments? No. Then I would say that our committee adjourned sometime after 7:30.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yergin. That concludes our committee reports for the evening. Now it's time for the mayor's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Few things. First of all, I want to thank all our residents and businesses who supported our Green Gives Back program over the holidays. This year, the city collected more than 45 shopping carts full of non-perishable food items for Green Good Neighbors. And if you haven't seen the work they do at Green Good Neighbors, go over there on a Wednesday morning sometime. They really do serve a portion of our population that really needs help. They provide food and clothing for people. In addition, a total of $2,504 was pledged by City of Green employees in the annual charity campaign to 3 local charities. The 3 charities selected was Blessings in a Backpack, and they'll receive $1,242. Green Good Neighbors, which will receive $932. And lastly, SIB Shops, which is a program at Greensburg United Methodist Church that has programming for siblings of somebody who has maybe some disabilities, and it gives the siblings some fun things to do. And so we support all 3 of those programs. It was our employees who selected those 3, and I encourage our businesses and residences to support the efforts of these local charities. On another note, Green's new golf course is open. It's now called Raintree Golf and Event Center. We didn't feel Country Club really represented the facility. The property was transferred to the city on December 28th. Billy Casper Golf is on board and managing the operations, and they even opened up the course this weekend for golf. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday had about 175 golfers who enjoyed some rounds of golf, and I saw pictures of Justin and his brother out enjoying golf as well. So also wanted to make a note that our Park and Rec's registration software for programming is being updated, and so until that's complete in March, all program registrations will be made by phone or in person. And I'm very proud to announce that the Narcan use by Green Fire, and for those who don't know yet, Narcan is used when somebody ODs on heroin or a substance similar to heroin. They were down again in 2018 by 33%. So what was 60 events in 2017 is down to 40 events in 2018. So we're very proud of our fire department and the efforts that they've made to combat that problem. And then a couple extra items. Last Friday, January 4th, was a grand opening of American Muscle and Fitness on South Main Street. And so if you've made a New Year's resolution to work out a little more, you may want to check out their operation. He used to own the Muscle Gym over here on Maslin Road, and from what I understand, he has a great following of people who came with him to his new place. And I wanted to announce, since we talked about Drug Task Force, that the next Education Committee meeting will be this Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Central Administration Building. And finally, I'd like to announce that the Impact Awards are being offered by Green Area Chamber of Commerce. That will be this Friday at 7 a.m. If you'd like to attend, you can call my office, or you can reach out to Green Area Chamber of Commerce. And then lastly, we didn't talk about the next council meeting. I think is being set for next week, is that right? And so you guys will work out the details. But typically, we meet on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. In the month of January, the second meeting, which is the 4th Tuesday, will be replaced by the State of the City, and that event will be held on January 31st. That's a Thursday, not a Tuesday. So the last day of the month, we will have our State of the City. Doors open at 6 p.m., and the address will begin at 7. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have any other unfinished business to come before council?
Move to adjourn.
No? Do we have any new business to come before council?
No.
All right, we don't have any unfinished or new business, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So we are adjourned at 8:46.